This is a real time, these next 400 years, where we're dissolving this victim consciousness if we allow ourselves to fully go there, that there is this potential for freedom.
Matthew, welcome. Thanks for being here and having a conversation today.
Hi,
Um,
Sarah, thank you. Looking forward to it.
yes, Matthew is a beautiful being I recently met here on Vancouver Island. He works for the Gene Keys, particularly around the Dream Arc. And I think I just learned the other day also community management. Is that right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
amazing. And you've been with the Gene Keys for 15 years, was that you said?
yeah. As a practice for 15 years, and then with the team for the last 6 years, 7 years. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, it's so great to have you here, and I foresee having conversations about the Gene Keys, obviously.
Hmm.
And particularly right now, the Gene Keys community is working through what's called the Venus sequence. And I love Richard. Richard went on this journey where he said he's going to do a year and a half almost long retreat going through the whole golden path sequence. So we just came through the activation sequence, and now we're in the Venus sequence, which for anybody who doesn't know is really about opening our hearts and relationships. So I foresee talking about the Venus sequence and what that's about and how that can really expand people's awareness and also just love and relationships, obviously. And we're particularly working on the sphere of purpose right now, which I could talk about purpose for so long too. So I foresee us talking about that, and then towards the end, I'd love to talk about the event that your company is co-hosting for Richard here on the island, which is so exciting.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah, exciting.
Yeah. And also I think I'd love to talk about community, just knowing that you're a community manager for Gene Keys, and I just was at your community event. Just was that
Hmm.
yesterday, 2 days ago?
2 days
Uh,
ago, yeah.
yeah, here in the valley, and had an amazing turnout on such a beautiful day. There was a really good turnout of people coming out, just Gene Key fans coming together, and it was a really beautiful energy. Um, Maybe let's start with community. What are you seeing? Some of the changes in community, or what does it mean to be like a
Mm,
community manager? What are some of the challenges with bringing community together? You would say,
mm.
and
Yeah.
yeah, how have you seen it change? Maybe.
Yeah. Well, I think, if we rewind a few years back to the beginning of that magical period of time known as COVID in 2020, a lot of things went into the online world at that time. And so that was a time when the Gene Keys really got a boost as well, because the whole world was taking a pause, a giant pause. And the Gene Keys is fundamentally about taking pauses. And so it fit the time really well. And so for a lot of communities, we went online. We gathered online. We're like the Muppets in the Zoom rooms, right? And the
Yeah.
all coming together and sharing in those spaces. And just over the years, I think especially with the rise of AI and other things, there's almost like there's some exciting things happens, but there's also this exhaustion that's happening in that space. And so there's a real craving, and I hear it again and again throughout our Gene Keys community, is to have more of these spaces where we can meet in person, where we can gather, and we can just share some of our experiences on this journey. And so if you go into the Gene Keys forum spaces, or if you go into our our global Facebook channel, you'll see that people there, they're just really, hey, is there anybody in this part of the world or that part of the world? What I love about here on Vancouver Island specifically is that I've been able to witness the growth of it over time and see the seeds that were planted by a few that have sprouted in such a way that there's so many that are coming to it at this time. And so we're able to have these gatherings. After that gathering of 20 of us or 18, 20 of us on the one day, I went to another gathering the next morning for the solstice, and there was
Mm.
26 people. This was in Victoria. So, and this was all around the Gene Keys. So it's like we have a healthy and growing an interested community. And I think with that too, there comes these different ideas of what community is. You know,
Mm,
the idea, notion of what community, for some people, there is this in-person community. It is a small group of people, perhaps. For other people, a community is like, yeah, a big wide audience around the world and connecting through the ethers in different ways. And so that's something that we've been really looking at is like, yeah, what it means to be a part of community within the Gene Keys. What Gene Keys as an organism or as a team or as a structure, as a business is able to hold.
mm,
And what guides and ambassadors are empowered to take out into the world and what just people who have a love of this work can do and start because we often get questions like, is it okay to just start up a book club? Yeah. Have a gathering in a coffee shop or at home, four of you, three of you, 10 of you, whatever it is. And it can really grow from there. And so people are doing this more and more, and there's that invitation more and more. And yes, it comes with the expansion of the Gene Keys. We're attracting there's the balance of the dark and light. Let's just call it that, right? And so Richard is somebody who really takes a lot of it in his stride, and when we have this team around us, and we're just navigating what it means to be a community. And it's really interesting working part of the core team, where most of us are actually in different parts of the world.
mm,
So there's a couple of us who are here on Vancouver Island, and we get to connect and meet up. But this event coming up in October is one where a number of our team will be coming and joining us, and hopefully more than I'm aware of at the moment.
mm,
And so I think being scattered around the world in that way and being something that is sort of expanding the reach of this work. Richard's Dharma or the Gene Keys Dharma seems big, it
it
seems to
does.
be touching a lot of people, a lot of souls in the world. And so it does. It comes with its challenges and its ways.
Mm,
But it is really fascinating to witness that, yeah, there's still the appreciation of these online spaces, but more and more that's like, it's almost in Gene Keys, we talk about the sixth line and the sixth line having this visionary perspective. And around the age of 50, it's like coming down off the roof and integrating with society and including ourselves in society. And that's a really important part of this work with the Gene Keys, such that it's not about, any particular group of individuals only practicing this. There's people from all kinds of traditions and ways of life who are drawn to the Gene Keys, which is something that I really love. So,
yeah.
yeah, those are some of the things I would say I've noticed is that there's a diversification taking place, and there's also a real call for meeting people in the flesh, especially if we've met online and we've never met in person. There's a real, there's people I've worked with in the team, and it was 3 years working with them before I met them in person for the first time. And that
Wow.
was like a
Wow.
red carpet moment when you get to meet these people
Yeah.
for the first time. So,
Yeah, and
yeah,
feel the presence of the person and
yeah.
share the field with them. Yeah. And I was
Right.
gonna say comment because I've been a part of many different communities over my entrepreneurial journey, and what I love about the Gene Keys is that, which I think is so important in this time and moving forward, and as you said, the dharma of the community of Gene Keys, I can only see expanding as we move into these uncertain times, which is that it starts off with like, hey, the shadow is allowed here, like you said, like
Mm,
in community there's
yeah.
that that's a part of the challenge, like the dark and the light, is that as humans we all come with these shadows, we all come
Hmm.
with these unseen parts of us and these more wounded parts of ourselves, and the Venus sequence really dives into that, and we can maybe segue to that. But the thing that I
Mm,
really so honor about the Gene Keys, and I could really feel it because that was my first time, now that I think about it, in just the presence of Gene Key fans. There was a real groundedness in the
mm,
group of people, because
hmm.
we're all there just like, yeah, we're working on our stuff. Like
Yeah, yeah.
we're all here owning our stuff versus like projecting it on somebody who's rubbed us the wrong way, or the leader of the group, or it's so important as we kind of, like you said, during COVID, we all had that opportunity to sort of be in our own little bubble and work through some of our stuff. Hopefully, I know that's what it was for me, and then now, like, I'm in that space right now where I've been in my hermit. I have the line the 2-4, so I actually went on a pendulum swing where I went super community oriented and was super unaware of my shadows, or even the fact that I was a projector for anybody who's into human design, and went out into community from that space, and then had to my pendulum swung all the way over to my hermit side, and now I'm just coming out really into community again, from this understanding of, like, okay, now this step forward into community is my healing journey. I had my healing journey in my hermitude, and now I'm having my healing journey as I move into community space. Is there anything you want to share on that topic
Yeah.
of being able to be in community where that is, like, not only accepted, but it's like, I
Yeah.
mean, in the book it's like talked about, and
Yeah,
you're
yeah, there's
looking at
space
it.
for it.
Yeah, yeah, there's
Yeah,
space for it.
absolutely, because like you said, being parts of communities where there isn't that self-accountability piece makes a huge difference when you're part of a team or a community that
Mm-hmm.
is. I'm really grateful to be part of something like that now.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think in my early days, especially of kind of waking up to myself, like many, got drawn into sort of the positive thinking only world, right? And it
Yeah.
was, and this idea of the shadow felt like it was something I couldn't talk about and I couldn't be present to, and there wasn't anybody I could share it with. And if I did share it, they'd probably reject me right afterwards,
Yeah.
or during. And so it's to have that kind of space where it's like, yeah, I'm just feeling this in this moment, and being able to share that without it being corrected or being made wrong. And just to have compassionate witnesses is such a deeply healing community to be part of in that way. To have that experience of the unwinding of the wounding, like you're talking about this work of the Venus sequence, which takes us deep into our childhood and deep into the kind of woundings we experienced there. And there was a time when it was like I can't go out into the world until I've done all my healing work.
Mm-hmm.
And this work with the gene keys is like, no, my work in the world is a part of that. It's the path of the wounded healer. It's the path of redemption, like through the work that I do, having friends who can reflect back to me without pointing fingers and blaming, and
Mm-hmm.
to be able to recognize that in my relationship with my wife, and to be able to go on this journey, and to say right out from the very beginning, like the Venus sequence is about relationships and cultivating relationships and awareness of the shadow, the gift, the city. And that when I journeyed through it, my wife doesn't work with the gene keys. She's not drawn to the gene keys. And I love that, because it means she's got her own path and calling. And so a lot of times when we enter into this, if we can just know this, like, I'm the only one who needs to do the work this way. If my partner is drawn to it, that's great. If they're not drawn to it, that's also great. They've either got their own healing path, or we find out over time, like, it took me into some, the first time I really dived into the Venus, it took me into some deep places where I wanted to run. I wanted to run away, or I wanted to cut off relationship because it was like, no, 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 there's no way you should have to carry this in the relationship, or that I should slow you down in any way. And that was one of the real things that came out of this work with the gene keys, is to even recognize that slowing things down, it can actually be a gift as well. That sometimes we do need to slow down. And in a world that just wants results now, 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 or to change now, 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 to be able to allow for that has been really, really potent. And so, yeah, when you say that about coming into a group and just feeling that groundedness, it's not about any kind of performance. It's not about
Exactly.
any kind of achievement of spiritual standards. In fact, in many ways, we're the opposite in the sense that, and is that it's a cultivation, or it's not a cultivation, it's a remembrance, an embrace of our ordinariness.
Exactly.
And that it's like, wow, yeah, like as I really embrace that, then I don't I don't have to perform. I don't have to prove my worth. I just get to be me, and I attract to me the people within my life that see the real me and appreciate the real me. And I think you were talking about projectors, and that's so important for us as projectors, as it is for everybody, with whatever type you are. And so it is absolutely one of the things that I appreciate, and it's something that we do hear often, is that people can really feel the soulfulness in the community, and that difference in the nervous system that people feel when they're amongst people who are kind of we've done or continue to do the work. And it doesn't mean it's done, even if we've spent, years unwinding it all, but that there is a gentleness, the four pillars of the gene keys of gentleness, patience, inquiry, and contemplation. Those
Mm.
four pillars exude through the people who put them into practice. And why wouldn't we want to connect with them and meet with those and to see that sort of kind of osmosis, if you like, into the world of business is also something that's really
Mm.
nice to see because we are subjected to the pressures of it all the time, but it's how we respond to it is so important. And so that for me is what this Gene Keys work reminds us, is that I get to choose my response in this situation. So absolutely mirroring what you were sharing there and that appreciation of that in spaces. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, until you meet people in the flesh, it's one thing to have the online experiences or to journey on your own. Like
Mm-hmm.
for the first 6 years, I didn't connect with anybody. Well, maybe that was in the first 3 or 4 years. Yeah, I didn't really connect with anybody else, and I mean, it was a very solitary path with the Gene Keys, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
path many of us take, and there's great value in it. And then at the same time, it's like, wow, when we get called into relationships in such way. It's really cool. Beautiful to watch.
Yeah, it really is. It's such a beautiful companion to have. It was the same for me as well. I was about probably about 4 or 5 years journeying on my own. Although my partner Tim quickly just began to love it as well. He had certain models that he had been working on as a 1-3 for his career as an entrepreneur and for the past 40 years, and the a part of the contemplation is that allowing, accepting, and embracing. He had the same kind of words in different orders, and he realized, oh no, the allow is very important first, because we don't have to like the feelings that come up, and that's
Yeah,
really
yeah,
important.
yeah.
And um, and and allowing that space, like we were talking about in community as well. And yeah, we had started the call just having our little chat before hitting record about authenticity and how to show up. I mean, in online spaces, in offline spaces, in the business world. I think the old world, at least what I had seen in the business, coming from a corporate background and then trying to navigate into the entrepreneurial journey and follow the online business practices. It's just, for me as a projector, was so clear to see when someone was performing or being authentic. And I think there's that sensitivity seems to be heightened in the collective now, to be able to experience if someone's really being authentic or if they're performing.
Hmm.
And and I don't know if you can feel the same thing. I'm sure.
Yeah, you're speaking the language of one of the gene keys in my profile, which is the 12th gene key,
Mm,
which moves from the shadow of vanity, which is a belief in the separateness of self, essentially,
mm,
and the gift of discrimination. And often discrimination is a word that is used in a negative kind of
mm,
sense, but in this,
mm-hmm,
it's like discriminating between head and heart and being able to discriminate but between what's good and not for good for us, to be able to discriminate whether when I'm entangled in relationship, whether this is mine or this is another's, right?
Yes.
And part of it is that love of the true self of an individual expressing them, right? Expressing themselves. And so that part of me gets lit up when I can really sense that in somebody. And if I feel somebody's pushing it or trying to, I can catch myself like distancing. It's like, I can't even necessarily put the finger on it sometimes.
Mm,
And and to be able to have that where it's like, yeah, you can really feel the authenticity and this person is just being themselves, even if that self is like wild and erratic compared to what the world tells them to be, that kind of thing. But they're just being true to that. And to really feel that in somebody and allow that in a side of ourselves. And it's not always easy because
mm-hmm.
there are still moments when I am inauthentic and I catch myself. But that's the difference now is I can catch myself in that and and to be able to continuously practice this art of discrimination, which whether somebody has that gene key in their profile or not. I mean, essentially, Richard talks about how the 12th shadow is the last one that we as humanity transcend, because we
Mm,
transcend any idea of specialness, anything like that. And so, and the specialness transcends as we recognize that we're part of this whole and that we're unique in our own expression, but that uniqueness makes us different, but it doesn't make us better than or worse than
right.
others. And so, to be able to be in that my nervous system just feels settled when I'm amongst people where I can feel like it's just this person is just being them.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean I always it's like, hey, I don't necessarily get along with that person, but at
Yeah.
least they're being them.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. And like you were saying before about slowing down and that pausing, that's so much a part of the art of contemplation that Richard speaks of. And listening to on the Venus stream, Elijah and Tenmayo, a call, they were speaking about what was Elijah said something like, it takes bravery to move slow.
Mhm. Oh,
And
yeah.
it so does, because it's so easy to just push past that natural reaction and then like miss the discrimination, like you were saying. Like maybe another word for people who don't resonate with it or aren't into the gene keys would be just that discernment
This I was
of,
just gonna say, yeah.
yeah, like
Mm.
that, am I reacting from my head or from a triggered space in the shadow, or am I, is this my heart? And yeah, that's certainly, I think, the journey that many of us are on currently, as at least I'm noticing more people talking about authenticity and using that in the conversation to want to feel that, because it's authenticity is
Yeah.
like that aliveness, the realness,
Hmm.
the space to hold the shadow within ourselves and also within humanity, as we're seeing like the collective shadows like in our face almost everywhere. And being able to be in spaces where our nervous system can feel settled. And I think that's one of the things that I love about the gene keys, is it offers like a kind of framework to help us sort of understand what's going on in our world when we are trying to make that discernment. And going back to the shadow and how the gene key speaks to the shadow, is this like very loving, this is allowed, this isn't anything wrong, there's nothing wrong with our shadows, they're actually
Hmm.
showing us how to be more authentic. And I've been in other circles where the shadow has literally been yelled at. Like it
Yes.
was like a
Yeah.
school teacher slapping your back because the shadow came out. And maybe let's dive into the Venus stream, because that is the deepest work into unraveling our wounding. For anybody who doesn't know the gene keys, um, just quickly, you can get your profile for free on the Gene Keys website, and you'll see a whole bunch of things, all your different spheres related to you, which you can see your perfect purpose and your life's work. And the Venus stream actually starts with the purpose, and works its way up. So once you've established the roots of having a little bit of understanding of who you are naturally or authentically, then it goes through this beautiful journey, and maybe we can start weaving that into this conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And that each of us, we get these in the Venus sequence itself, there's six spheres that we move through. So that means there's six gene keys that we get to reflect on. And as we talked about this idea of patience with it, it's knowing that I don't have to gather this all at once. Like I came with a lot of logic in my upbringing and a lot of intellect in my upbringing, and that meeting the gene keys was not something that was going to be conquered by the intellect. My
Yeah.
purpose wasn't something that my intellect was ever going to feel happy or content with. In many ways, it was just like, okay, what's next? What's next? Whereas this sense of purpose comes out of a real deep embrace of something on the cellular level. And so we need to give ourselves time with it. And so when we come into the Venus sequence, this retreat that we're a part of collectively in this field right now is 6 months long. And talk about, like you said, the slowing down for a lot of people coming into it's like 6 months. Like, what are thinking when we say a 6 month retreat, they're thinking every day, each day, every like
Yeah.
all day, every day. It's like, no, that's the beauty of this work is like really, this is a map, but we don't want to mistake the map for the terrain. It's like we live this life and these things called the gene keys can be real guideposts. And as we move through the 6 months, it's like we bring our attention to one sphere and one gene key, which plays a role in the entirety of this holographic, hologenetic profile. And so, like you said earlier, it's like we sit nestled in the purpose to begin with. And we've actually been in it for 3 months, really, because those of us who journeyed before, we finished in something called the activation sequence on the purpose sphere. And in the Venus sequence, we start in the purpose sphere. But for anybody contemplating it, they're noticing when they turn their attention to purpose in relationships, it changes the flavor of the experience a little bit.
Yeah.
And so we can spend this whole month with this one gene key and savor it and digest it and go slow with it. And for me, when I first came into the Gene Keys, that was the thing. It was like, no, no, wait a minute. I got too many issues in my life that need to be solved now. Don't tell me I got to go slow.
Yeah.
But when I approached it and I went slow, like you said, Elijah having the courage to slow. It's like, man, thank God for the slow in that sense. And
Exactly.
so over these 6 months, we work through each of these spheres that becomes a kind of a gentle unraveling of the onion that is our lives. And we begin in sort of we look at our purpose and what's called our attraction, which is the people and the things, the experiences that we draw into our life, into our experience. And then we move down what's known as this pathway of karma, and we meet these different stages of our life. And we look at the age of 15 to 21. And then after we spend some time there, then we regress a little to 8 to 14. And then we go from like the first 7 to 8 years of life. And then we even pop right back into the womb, the time and the moment of conception in what's known as the core. And it's really and some of that's unconscious, obviously. Not everybody has memories of being in the womb, although some people do. But as we contemplate the nature of this particular gene key in a sphere and the nature of a particular wound that's there and a particular gift, it's amazing what kind of memories do come up and what kinds of experiences that we have along the way. And so, what I can say is that after all these years of doing it, every journey through the Venus sequence peels back another layer of the onion and brings another depth of understanding, another layer to that depth of understanding of not only the gene key, but my lived life.
Yeah.
And that's, essentially what this is. And remembering that it's like these are guideposts, they're not identities. It's like we meet these gene keys and it can be so easy to get caught up in the map. But really, that's why it's, y- you know, we can jump in and and gather the information of the wisdom when we need to. But really, life is what the wisdom is inside of us. And it's through our lived experiences that we have our own wisdom and understanding. And so, actually, somebody like you and I, we share the same two of the same gene keys in what are called our purpose and radiance, but flipped around. And it's like we probably have very different life experiences, but we can probably find some things that was similar and some challenges that we both moved through, and then other ways in which we have a very different experience of a particular gene key. My brother and sister, twins, born 2 minutes apart, same chart, completely different people. And so it's a map to understanding of ourselves, and it can take us into some really deep places within. And like I always joke that it's kind of like what's his name? Forrest Gump with his box of chocolates, because you
Oh
just
yeah.
you never know what you're gonna get.
Yeah, you
Like,
know.
and for me, that is this body of work of the gene keys, is that
Hmm.
I can be in a trust in the not knowing. There was a time when not knowing was just paralyzing to me, but now that not knowing means a trust and a surrender to what it is that shows up. And the challenges that I can meet now in that groundedness of my being is so much more than I could have met 7, 8, 9 years ago.
Hmm.
And to be able to do that with that the Venus sequence is such a beautiful map and guidepost along the way. So I don't
Yeah.
know if that's what you were kind of
Yeah.
looking for, but
Well, I
that's
mean, yeah, it just whatever comes. I have journeyed through the Venus sequence a number of times on my own, and this is my first time in community. And you just have
mm,
a beautiful way of expressing your lived experience, which I just think is beautiful. And that's the thing that I love about the Gene Keys is that, like you said, it's 6 months. Are you doing it every single day? It's like, well, you can every day if you want to, but it's just there in the background. It's like this container, and I've loved being in the purpose for 3 months. I've just because the words just you just have these three simple words like your shadow, your gift, and the highest level of that art that theme is what is called the city. And so those words are just there in the background. And so life is always bringing us, like the attraction sphere is right after the purpose, it's always bringing us exactly what we need all the time. And it's
mhm,
just, if we're moving slow enough and if we have the awareness, then there's this potential every day to learn something new about ourselves and our relationships with others. And circling back to this authenticity piece, it's like ultimately we're shedding all these different layers that we've had through our life, and some would say lifetimes, of ways we had to wear a mask to feel safe in this world. And circling on what you're saying about certainty, like that's a thing I'm seeing so much be spoken about, is especially in these times, is
mhm,
like how to be okay in uncertainty,
yeah,
and realizing like that's actually the truth of nature itself, is or
mhm,
as Richard Rudd would say, like that's where the magic
mhm,
is in being okay and navigating your whole life in that uncertainty, but having these like three simple words just running in the background in our contemplations can give us that, like you were saying, that sense of kind of groundedness to be able to stay somewhat centered when the world is in a very uncertain, chaotic place, and to just have that sort of, as Richard would say, like that cellular knowing that I am being guided and I can
mhm,
trust this non-linear path. And I think that, something you touched on is like that intellect that I think all of us were conditioned to put as the priority
yeah,
of navigation, if we even use that word, but just like the intellect is your mind is the thing,
yeah.
that's
It's
there
the
to
king.
the king. Like if I
Mhm.
could just think it in my mind and I can make it happen. And
Yes,
yeah,
yeah.
and we're learning, and we can circle into this projector conversation, because I wonder if, like, as projectors who were conditioned to be generators, and it just does not work for us, like, at all. We,
Mm,
before the call started, we spoke to, in our 30s, and maybe it happened a couple times. It did for me, like having those moments of crashing, like maybe projectors sort of have to crash early and then figure out how to navigate without the what we thought was the king, which was, the intellect and this linear
mm.
path, and to be okay in the uncertainty. I don't know if that's been sort of what maybe you've contemplated about being a projector, because I know within human design circles they speak to projectors being guides or the future leaders.
Yeah.
And if you want to speak to that, I don't know if you've heard that at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's interesting too, because even traveling through the Venus when I was in the depth of it all,
Mm,
knowing that I was a projector and my wife knowing that I was a projector changed the whole nature of our relationship
wow.
because she's a manifesting generator.
Mm,
And so we would look at, she could do something and I could do something, and it would seem like we're doing the same thing, but getting very different results, right? And just, it was working for her, it won't working for me.
yeah. Exactly.
This is what I'm sure many projectors feel, and, and
Yes.
and and each of us can relate to it in some way. Like there is a little bit of projector in everybody in a sense, and there's a little bit of generator in everybody. But really recognizing things like when I'm in room with people and that I'm holding space with people that I can sometimes feel because our emotional fields are open. We're just open and receptive that we can feel things that don't necessarily belong to us. And that can become an issue if we glob onto it in a way, but it can be this great teacher if we allow ourselves to um, recognize and discriminate or discern that oh, okay. So there have been times where I've held and guided spaces, and there was one group in particular, I was working with them once every 2 weeks. And I remember this was when I first was kind of aware of this pattern for myself. And I would notice the sorrow and the sadness in the group. And my life was pretty good. And yet, of course, there's always the unconscious material. And so as I was working with it is just recognizing, is this mine? Is this another's? But it, regardless of, it's kind of like, it's here. It's not mine. It's not this. It's in the field, right? And so being able to be aware of that and watching how it shifted over time, I could see how I was able to guide. And I play that role a lot inside of my role inside of Gene Keys now, as I'm receiving what the community is bringing forward, whether it's what they're lit up by, or what they're challenged by, or where particular conversations. And so from there, it's like, and then end up having conversations with the rest of the team, and it does play a guiding role if I'm in the right place. And that's for any of us, right? Is that
Yeah.
when we're in the place where we're received, then that guidance can go somewhere. But
Yeah.
if we're not in the right place, and this is the projector's challenge, especially, but for anybody, is that if we're trying to guide a place that isn't receptive to that guidance, then we're going to feel unappreciated. It's going to not land. But when we are in that place where there's that openness and receptivity to it, boy, you can notice the difference. And so that's what I would say for myself in my own journey in being sort of ushered into leadership roles. It wasn't something I was per se actively looking for inside of this team and the community. And as I've been called into it, recognizing, oh, okay, how, that question at the heart of the Gene Keys, the heart of the Venus, the heart of the Pearl is, how can I be of the greatest service to the whole? And sometimes that isn't just simply listening and receiving and not saying anything. And sometimes it is in being able to digest that and transmute for myself and just become aware of it in such a way that my guidance is coming from a clear, non-reactionary perspective. It's coming from that okay, there's, I found the gift in
Mm,
this moment, in this situation. So, yeah, I think that's kind of how I experience it. And that, yes, we hear this around different authority types playing different roles, and that projectors are here as guides. And so sometimes we can be behind the scenes as guides, right?
yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean you've got a platform. You can be playing a real guidance role and just knowing for yourself, even if nobody else sees it, that your guidance has played a role in some way is quite potent. And so I have seen some projectors where they take it on as a bit of like a, hey, we're the guides of the future
Yes.
kind of thing. And it's like, no,
Yes.
that I don't think that was the space from which this was in. It was recognizing that, yeah, we play the guide role, but we couldn't play that guide role if the other people weren't all playing their role in this. And that it is that thing of everybody's gifts is what's needed on the planet right now, and everybody lit up by their gifts so that they can give them away, because that's what the gifts are for.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautifully said. I resonate with everything you said there. And yeah, it's if someone's coming from that like I'm special, I'm the guide of the future, it's missing the whole point that the leadership is completely changing from the top down to the
Yeah.
whole, like the horizontal, the inside out, the or as Richard Rudd would say, like that synergy and synarchy of everyone just kind of in that, well, there's the word authenticity again, like that their true their true essence, and like you said,
Hmm.
just generously sharing the gifts, and some beautiful synergy and harmony can take place in communities. And it's for me really amazing to have the Gene Keys, Richard Rudd, and what you all have created, to see that as like a model in the world for businesses going forward. And
Hmm.
I love that, like Richard Rudd's authenticity. I remember a year ago, before he he announced the Sage Retreat, he just was doing his tea on YouTube and just saying like, so here's behind the curtains of the business and Gene Keys, like
Yeah.
what CEO business, I know he's not the CEO, but what owner of a company does that, and just says like, yeah,
Hmm.
so we did great, sales were awesome during COVID, like you said, because everybody had that chance to have to be online and do some inner work. And then okay, community, like, do you still value the Gene Keys? Because like we don't know if we're going to be around, like it's up to the
Hmm.
community to put the value there. And he just was so beautiful, such a beautiful example for me of what the new business is about. It wasn't trying to like push more sales, or we got to hit these numbers, or it was just maybe this is the end. Like he just had total detachment about it.
Hmm.
And that humbleness, and that leadership to just show that detachment and show that this is just what it is. And so the community is going to either step up and support and say yes, we want more of this, versus the old sort of old school business way of trying to push an agenda. And I love the story he shares as well, that he for fun was playing with AI and asked AI like, what would you do if for a business, like, because AI can create these business plans and just
Yeah.
within 2 minutes, and then there you go, you have your plan for the next year. And it was like, well, see if you can condense things and make things shorter, and you know put out
Yeah.
sound
Yeah.
bites and
Yeah.
do this and that. And Richard was like, yeah, no, I'm gonna do the opposite. I'm gonna
Yeah.
do a year plus long retreat.
Yes, exactly.
and
Yeah.
and then it worked out, and people that were able to say, the people that really honor that long journey and the long game were able to say, I'm so in, and I so value this community. And I just think that's such a beautiful example for the way that the world is going, and just
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
speak to leadership and business. And I absolutely love the articles he wrote on the executive magic for the Star Pearl. Since
Yeah.
I'm sure you know those.
Yeah.
I have them like highlighted with pen all
Yeah. They've
over the
got
place.
some.
Yeah,
absolutely.
they have some
Yeah, really good
amazing,
stuff.
really, really good stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so as we're sort of getting closer, I want to save some time because I'm really excited about this event that you co-created with your business partner,
Hmm.
Sleeping Phoenix Production, is it?
That's right. Yeah,
That's
although we're both a little human design in there. The
yeah,
sleeping phoenix is
yeah, it's
this
brilliant.
era we're moving into is this era of the sleeping phoenix.
Yes,
Richard says it should be the waking phoenix
the
or
rising
the
phoenix.
playful phoenix. He's not a huge fan of sleeping
I
phoenix.
agree. That always confuses me as well. It's like, why is
Yeah.
sleeping? No, isn't this like the rise? I think this is the rise.
Yeah.
Maybe let's touch on that. Like what? So
Mhm.
there's this 2027 in the human design
Mhm.
and the gene keys that speaks to this shift. I've spoken about it briefly on Flow Network as well, but let's talk. Like,
Mm.
what is this shift about? What
What is this shift?
why the rise of the phoenix? What is
Yeah.
shifting?
Yeah. Well, and this is really interesting when you look at it from the human design perspective and then Richard Rudd perspective, is that they see things slightly differently, these two founders of the two systems. And, got to remember that Richard was actually a big part of bringing human design into the world too. Like, I think it was in the UK primarily that he had sort of the license to take it out around there. So he was a big part in bringing that forward. And so where they differ is on what 2027 means and where that's going to take us. And so that in itself, for those of us who love both systems and love both maps, can look at it and be like, well, we've got these two guys that we respect both of them, and they're saying something very divergent. And so it's like there's that deeper invitation more so into that uncertainty in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, what we've had is for the last 400 years, it's like there's a gene key, one gene key to rule them all, as it were. It's like it's the way of humanity in that period of time. And so for the last 400 years, it's been the 37th gene key, which is part of it's part of the channel of community, it's called. And so we've seen the rise of community and organizations and teams and businesses over these 400 years, and that we're in this passing of the baton now, where we're moving to this different 400-year period where the gene key that is the kind of way forward is the 55th gene key. And it's part of a group of four of them that makes up what's called the cross of the sleeping phoenix, four different keys. And so we could get into all the keys, and there's really eight keys that sort of determine the nature of things collectively in that 400-year time. But this 55th gene key is this one that's kind of the main one. And it's always been that this is the one that moves from the shadow of victimization to the gift of freedom. It's also the city of freedom. It's the only one where freedom is the gift in the city. Now, Richard's also thrown some spanners in the works recently because he's introduced the word romance into that, which I
I
love.
love it. I
And
love
as
it too.
somebody with the 55th gene key in my profile, have always kind of had a dance with that. The 55th gene key sits in what's known as my attraction sphere. And a
Mm.
big part of my journey in life was about knowing that I could feel a sense of freedom inside of relationships. Because until I met my wife, freedom was always outside of relationship. And so to be in this time where it's like it's romancing all of life, this time of the great romancing, I really like that.
Me
And
too.
so for all of us though, it's like we are we have things like the gene keys or whatever system people are using to meet the ways in which victimization shows up, whether it's our own victimization of self, the ways that we remain a victim, and this is in no way disparaging the victim either, recognizing that there is the victimization that takes place in certain global events that we've heard about recently, where victimization has been at the root of it, and to honor the journey and to recognize it, to acknowledge where we're the victim. So we can't transform anything of that kind of victim consciousness until we acknowledge it's there. If we want
Yeah.
to say everybody else is the victim and point the fingers there, we're never we're never going to see it within. And so this is a real time these next 400 years, we're entering this time where we're dissolving this victim consciousness if we allow ourselves to fully go there, and that there is this potential for freedom, and it's a freedom that's taking into it's not just me and my freedom. It's a freedom, like, what is it, freedom when I have freedom and so does another have freedom. We hear it in like the challenges we're meeting in the nature of freedom of speech, where it's like, yes, everybody should have freedom of speech except them and them, not them, you
Yeah.
know. And
Yeah.
so we were meeting these challenges at this time, and this 55th gene key is this kind of awakening to something here that is both about the individual and the collective. It is a really exciting time in that respect. And so who knows what these 400 years will bring. And we're just kind of like entering the energy of it now. Like I remember in 2012 when the predictions, the end of the Mayan calendar, and there was
Mm-hmm.
the big predictions of changes then. A lot of people ended up having, I kind of called it ascension disappointment, where
Yeah.
it's like there's this, we're going to wake up in a different world tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
and then disappointment that they weren't, and there have been other dates like that throughout time where they've
Mm-hmm.
had that. And so but at the same time, we can look back and see, yeah, in that time of 2012, there was a changing of energies, and people had them very obviously in their own personal life. Excuse me,
Mm-hmm.
getting hiccups in certain ways. And to then recognize that, so this time of 2027, Richard's actually been calling it the year of the closing door. And so
Mm-hmm.
it might feel like certain doors are closing, right? And what doors are closing doesn't mean that we've been shut out permanently. We're being redirected to where our unique course is taking us. And so who knows what that who knows what that might be. And so the energy comes through, but who knows how long it'll be before we see visible changes in the world. I mean, we are seeing a lot of visible changes in the world, but we're also seeing a lot of the shadow of victimization. We're seeing the two aspects of that 55th gene key are blame and complain, right? We either point the finger at the other or we just complain about the way things are. And so until we transcend that, we're going to see it in the world. So we're seeing a lot of the messiness. But again, like you were saying earlier, there's this allowance for it. There isn't
Mm-hmm.
this making it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
There you can almost get a sense of glee in this kind of work where you meet an individual and they're like, oh, I'm really moving some, and you can see they're open and you can see they're allowing, you can see they're in the process of accepting, maybe not embracing yet, but there's this kind of sense of excitement of like, yeah, you're there, you're so close, you're coming through this. And because as we like to say in the Gene Keys, is like the only way out is through. And so we're going through that. And I love Richard's imagery of the dragonfly,
Mm-hmm.
moving from the the nymph to the dragonfly and this process of transformation. And we're in that stage of like, I don't know what we're going to become. And lots of people have got their ideas of this is what the world's going to look like in 5 years. This is what it's going to look like. And I love all that. And they can be visions to hold for. And at the same time, recognizing when it's the intellect, again, trying to grasp for some sense of certainty.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because this freedom is a freedom from that kind of grasping too, and a
Mm-hmm.
total allowance for just what has this great magician of life, nature, got in store for us as a
Mm-hmm.
humanity? I
Mm-hmm.
know not.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so many things came to mind as you were speaking about that change, just looking at the two different numbers and archetypes, and maybe we can have another call that where we dive into more of those archetypes of those eight keys and just the energetic changes and currents that we're, like you said, we're already feeling. It's not just that date and boom, everything's changed. Like who knows how long it is until the total visibility of a complete metamorphosis of that, like to use the dragonfly, is revealed in a settled space where it's like, oh, this is what it's like to fly, and wow, who knew
Mhm.
this is what
Yeah,
life
yeah.
could be. And I too love the romance addition to that key. It really, the timing of that video coming out was just so perfect. His My partner Tim, he has the 55 in his evolution. He actually has the cross of the sleeping phoenix, which
Right.
let's
Right.
call it
Is
the
my
rising.
kingdom. Yeah,
He's
yeah,
got all
right.
four of those keys. So it's something we've been really navigating together. And then of course with the 49, they paired together and make
I was
that
just gonna say,
that
yeah.
whirlwind. And
Yeah.
since we met, our life was just a whirlwind of,
Hmm.
what was false just flew off and away from us. And
Hmm.
that romance encompasses the sort of the grief. It's like the grief is
Hmm.
allowed to be there with the freedom, and the darker messy bits of like a romantic movie that you watch. Like it
Yeah.
has that, it's got that natural up and down, and to be able to see the beauty in all of that. So I agree with the romance, and that's just going to be the way the world is when we're moving from,
Hmm.
the 37, which is that like community, like tribal bonds, where I think a lot of us had to hide or mask our authenticity in order to fit into that community. And then as we like move through that, realizing where we're, you know, having the shackles of being a victim to having to stay there, and realize like, oh wait, there's maybe a way through this. And
Hmm.
then we have to grieve that old self. And it's
Hmm.
just like a messy, like Richard always says with the dragonfly analogy, it's like, do you think it's comfortable for the dragonfly to like have its wings kind of come out and water spurting out of his wings and
Yeah. Yeah. And
yeah.
then, it's funny too, because I live by the river here, and a couple of times I've been at the river and I've seen the dragonflies scooting over,
Mm.
and then they dip in. It's almost like they're like, "Hey, I remember this. I remember this." And I've rescued three or four from drowning
They're like, I want to go
in the
back.
river. Yeah, exactly. It's like, so we
Wow.
probably have that phase of it too, where
Yes.
we come through or the other side and it's like, oh my gosh, this is all so new and fresh. I don't know what to do
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
What are these wings
Yeah.
for? It's like,
It's like I've
yeah,
seen the image of the Matrix when Neo gets shown by Morpheus the white room. He's like,
yes,
this is
yeah,
actually reality. And he's like, whoa. And he just takes it all in way too fast. And then he's like vomiting and he's out for who knows
yeah,
how
yeah,
long.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
he's like,
exactly.
or it's the hero's journey, not wanting to answer that call out, which is just
Yes,
a natural
absolutely.
part of our journey. And yeah, well, I could talk on and on and on about all of this.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I do want to, before we close, talk about the brilliant event, the Triple Merlin, that is coming in October. Richard Rudd is coming to Vancouver Island, and I heard you briefly speak about that. It's not him going to be speaking about the gene keys, which I'm so excited about. Not that I couldn't listen to him talk about it, but there's so many things already out there of him speaking to the gene keys, and you just asked him like, "What's alive in you?"
Hmm.
And that's what came through. And what feels significant to you about this gathering in person with Richard?
Well, I mean, just for us alone here on Vancouver Island, it's already been quite magical just witnessing people coming together. And like, we've started calling it the road to Avalon because it's not about the destination. It's a 4-hour event on a Saturday in October, but there's so much lead up to it. And there's so many people we're connecting with along the way. And so it's all part of this. And yet there is this like, the threat of Avalon and Merlin showing up in different ways too, that is really quite beautiful. And we haven't got the time to go into all the different synchronicities, but it's going to be different in the sense that, yeah, Richard is going to be his bardic storytelling self. He's going to allow the poet to come through. We're going to be holding a space of what he's calling sacred theater, right? And so there's going to be parts of it that those of us who've known him through the gene keys are going to be seeing things differently because there's a real creative fire burning through Richard at the moment, and that's when we feel that in the community, we get, we all get touched by that, and that
Mm.
it is a real, yes, he's the maestro, he's the person conducting the orchestra, but we're each part of the orchestra. And so that everybody who's there in person and everybody who's there watching online is going to make it part of this journey. And what I've loved is that I have always resonated with this notion of Merlin, and Merlin is always somebody who is invested here, regardless of the myths and stories about the evolution of humanity. And that's a big part of what the Gene Keys transmission is here for. But this Merlin, this return of the triple Merlin, is something I don't know what to expect. It's going to be something different for Richard. It's going to be something different for our community. So for those who know Gene Keys, it's going to be another wild side of Richard. And for those who are brand new to it, yeah, my wife signed up because she says we're not talking about numbers. We're not talking about things. We're not getting into the mathematics of the structures and the tetrahedral and the it's and so it's going to be something very fresh for those who also know nothing about gene keys that
Mm.
will hopefully find a resonance with this particular character that is called Richard Rudd and all that he brings through. So it's going to be a beautiful transmission. It's going to be we've got it as Act One, Act Two, and Act Three, I believe, is the way we're
Beautiful.
moving through it. And it's going to be something very unique to us. We've got some pretty like we're out there looking for a harpist right now, and there's other things that we're looking for to bring this together to make it quite the experience. And when Richard said, yeah, like you said, I asked him, because he could always talk about gene keys, and he shares a lot on gene keys, but I just wanted to know what's alive in you right now.
Mm.
And I think he chose the perfect place. I mean, England would have been good too with this whole the roots of it there, but there's something about this island for which this is a perfect match, and it feels so natural. And just meeting all the people along the way, just today, I was hearing of all these Avalonian synchronicities. And in fact, anybody who does watch Richard, you do you remember you used to sit in front of that stained glass window?
Yes.
Yeah. So it turns out somebody from the support team emailed us this morning, said, hey, somebody was asking about the window back there. And they emailed us, and he says, I didn't know this. And I had actually never heard this either about this stained glass window, but it's to do with Merlin. It's to do with
Wow.
Avalon. And so it's like this whole kind of so all these years I thought Avalon was my own like kind of natural incline, but all the time there's been this kind of message from behind Richard in that stained glass window.
Wow. From Avalon.
And and so we're calling those Merlin moments right now, where it's like all these little magical moments that lead up to this
Mm.
big day. So yeah, it's I just wanted to bring it up here just so I could
Yeah, please
so,
do.
so it's
I love the synchronicities. I just
um,
I mean that's the magic of the uncertainty, right? Is just to be surprised and wowed by all of these little synchronicities like let's see it.
so that's the stained glass window, which is a
Just
little bit
angle
reflected
it
in
down.
my,
Yeah, there we go. Oh
there we go,
wow.
right? And
Wow.
so I just need to read a little bit of it. It's called
Yeah.
Merlin of the Celts and encodes the mystery of the Isle of Avalon as the foundational pyramid, with Merlin representing the flaming heart of illuminated truth carried by the Magus. In the mystery of the Celtic cross is also encoded the power of wizardry through enlightened action and grounded living. The whole window also synthesizes a map of the chakras and the tree of life, with each gemstone representing a different stage of awakened awareness. And the crystal ball at the apex of the pyramid is the awakened solar plexus center, our future awareness, represented as the Grail.
And then you have your business is the Grail Mysteries.
Yeah, don't even get me started on the Grail mysteries. Yeah. And
And
that's another place where it's just weaving in beautifully my passions and love for 20 years found a home inside of the Gene Keys transmission and found connections with inside of it.
Wow. And the very first community that I was introduced to coming to the island was Avalon. There's
Avalon.
there's
Yeah.
Avalon Farm here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I just taught my first class there last week. And then when you were speaking at the event space we were at, my first Gene Keys community event, I was watching you. And my partner noticed behind your head was a painting of
Yeah.
our house, our
Not
float
just
house.
don't have. Yeah.
And what that's cool, but what makes it cooler is I was shown a picture of what the artist looked like who painted that house, and he looked like Merlin.
He had this big gray beard. I knew exactly who he is. White beard, even the mustache and the hat and everything. It was like, yeah.
Yeah,
So expect more of that. I
yeah.
think, somebody else just who signed up to the event said they'd been to a place called Avalon on Catalina Island, I think it was in the States. And so, you know, all these little things. Like I love that our support team thought to send, or the Team 64 Gene Key support team thought to send us that because of this Merlin connection today. So
That's amazing. And just seeing like the dragonfly, is that great example of like a tasting what this other side of this future human, as he talks about, and the sun like gleaming on those wings and just wowing us, is like, what if life is just always gonna wow us with these amazing synchronicities of
I'm up
magic?
for it.
Yeah, me too.
It has so far. I love more of them. So
Yeah, I know. Just can't help but like bring that bubbly joy inside. So thank you
absolutely.
so much, Matthew. This was such a great
Yeah, this was
conversation.
fun. Thank
It
you.
was,
Thank
I
you for the
would,
invitation.
yeah, my pleasure. And I'd love to have you back for a
For
conversation.
sure. Let's do it again
Yeah, let's do it
sometime. Yeah,
again.
yeah.
So we'll put the links for, I think you still have tickets for the in person, and there's certainly tickets for the streaming. It's in
Yeah.
October. We'll put the dates and everything. And is there still space for the Venus sequence if people want to join us in that
Yeah, if
too?
people want, it's pretty close. Like, I don't know when your podcast goes out, so it's like
In a
towards the
couple
end of
days, yeah.
this. Yeah.
Okay.
So they'll have till the end of this month, the end
End
of
of
June,
June.
to sign up and
Okay.
register. Highly recommend it. And again,
Highly.
like we said, it's like if you look at it and it's like, my God, there's so much there. How am I going to make time for it? It's like, no, no, this is in your background of your
Yeah.
life. You can return to it for clues as to what's going on, but your life is,
Yeah.
that is the Gene Keys living out in your
Yeah.
life,
Yeah. And
trustingly.
and and it's so like you guys have obviously perfected doing online retreats, just the way the website is out, like it's just right at the top. What you need to know is right there. If you want to go deep, 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 you
Oh,
can.
yeah.
But the
Yeah.
way it's laid is like just start here.
Essential.
And yeah.
Yeah.
And if you don't even want to get into the tech, then there's the books as well. I got the Venus sequence book
Hmm.
here. And you can
Yeah.
I like just taking this into the woods with me as well and just doing it
Yeah.
the old
Yeah. A lot
fashioned
of
way.
people like the books in our community still.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
like the books. Yeah.
The books are the great. So,
Yeah.
all right, Matthew, thanks so much.
All
Have
right.
a great day, and we'll talk soon again.
Thanks, Sarah.
Okay,
Okay.
bye, everyone.
Bye.